I'm Jacob Faber, and I am an associate professor of sociology and public service at New York University. And more importantly, I'm somebody who cares deeply about understanding and addressing racial inequality. And the lens that I use to study race is geography, or spatial inequality. And what I mean by that is there's a growing body of research showing that where we live and work and socialize impacts virtually every aspect of our lives. And that because we distribute opportunity and disadvantage in this uneven way, it becomes a primary driver of racial inequality. For example, we can think about schools. We are the only country among peer nations that finances public schools with local property taxes. So what that means is if you live in a wealthy area, you're going to have wealthy schools. And if you live in a poor area, you're going to have poor schools. And so what this means is that wealthy white kids do much better in places that are more segregated and more unequal. And it also means that, and the research has shown this, that you can move a kid from a poor neighborhood into a wealthier neighborhood, and we can see that their adult incomes increase by, on average, over 30%. And this is tied directly to housing. We know location. Home equity is the largest asset that most Americans hold. And so what we've done is we've tied people's financial fortunes to this market that actively discriminates. You can think about appraisal practices and subprime mortgage lending. This market also passively discriminates. White Americans, for example, are more likely to inherit money from their parents, which can be used for down payments. And this inequality has increased over time. The average inflation-adjusted value of a home in a white neighborhood has approximately doubled since 1980, while a comparable home in a community of color has not gained any value at all. Net of many measures of socioeconomic status, communities of color are more likely to have payday lenders and less likely to have commercial banks. And what's more, the commercial banks that do exist in communities of color tend to be far more expensive in terms of fees and banking requirements. So the cost of participating in the economy is more expensive in communities of color. And tragically, we've learned over the past of the couple of years during this pandemic that your health is directly tied to the people who live around you. Illness and death from the pandemic was and continues to be highly concentrated in certain neighborhoods. And again, racial inequality and segregation are directly linked here as well. So how do we get here? How do we get to a place where if you give me your zip code, I can predict quite a bit about your life? The prevailing understanding is driven by an idea of personal choice in a free market. People just like to live near people who are like them. And while there's certainly a truth to that, my research has shown that there is a tremendous role that government policy has played in segregating us. For example, there were these massive housing programs that were a part of the New Deal in response to the Great Depression. These policies encouraged millions of Americans to buy homes by subsidizing mortgage lending, and they helped millions of people become homeowners. But they actively encouraged segregation and racial inequality through redlining, through refusing to lend to people of color, through requiring restrictive covenants that prevented black people from buying homes in white neighborhoods, through exclusionary zoning laws that limited the housing supply, thereby making it more expensive. And all of this kind of created many completely white suburban communities. And the research that we have today shows that we can kind of largely see the consequences of these policies generations later. So, there's a real intentionality at the root of the racial inequality that we see today, that continues to be about place and geography. So, we can't achieve racial equality without reducing spatial inequality.